me, sir.
Hello and welcome back to Stephen King Month. Last time we left off, we were in a demon car from hell, and now we're off to prison. And last week, I let you guess which one it was, and unfortunately, this time around, it's not the Green Mile. But it will be covered sometime this month before Stephen King's It. But today, we're going to be covering the Shawshank Prison, a prison that has no holds bars in how it treats its prisoners. The Shawshank Redemption was directed and written by Frank Darabont of Season 1 of Walking Dead fame and also The Mist fame, and stars Morgan Freeman as Red and Tim Robbins as Andy Dufresne. Andy Dufresne is framed for a murder he didn't commit towards his wife, who was having adulterous ties to, well, a golfer, and is sent to Shawshank Prison, where pretty much the living conditions around there aren't exactly the best. It's run by Mr. Norton, the warden, played by Bob Gunton, and the captain of the entire institution is hosted by Clancy Brown. Yes, Mr. Krabs himself is a prison guard. But this film contains a lot to do with how prison life is. It's very brutal in how it depicts it. Granted, you don't see a lot of violence. There is violence in this film, but it kind of is a parallel to how modern prisons treat their inmates. I do imagine, though, that they treat them a little bit better in today's world, but back in the 40s to the 60s, it isn't exactly the best of times for a lot of people. This film serves a narrative purpose that is pretty much true to most prison movies, I would feel, and that is hope in times of darkness. Most of the characters that we see are being rejected for parole every single time, even if they give them a pretty substantial answer of, yeah, I feel like I've been rehabilitated, I want to go back into the world, that's how I want to do it. And they get rejected most of the time. What is really interesting about this film is that this isn't necessarily based off of any book, it's more based off of a tiny short story called Rita Hayworth in the Shawshank Redemption. Granted, it has the same characters, but it's titled a little bit differently than the movie is. The redemption part of this plays a huge part in the narrative themes of the film, being that it's about finding your way through a time of darkness and being redeemed for the shitty things you've done. And there's even a really great shot in this film towards the end of the film where Tim Robbins escapes the institution and you see this image. This image right here is pretty much what is the movie. It's about finding salvation in redemption. It's a film that is about hope in the darkest of places, and the Shawshank Prison definitely serves that purpose of being the source of the darkness inside of hope. And it's really, really telling. The acting here is pretty phenomenal. It's really great acting at its core. One thing I have to point out in this movie review is that Frank Darabont, as a director and writer, knows his shit about writing characters. He knows his stuff about directing characters and cast members. So you get some really good performances out of Tim Robbins, who over time he becomes a bit of an assistant towards the warden, doing the accounting and doing the book stuff and whatnot later in the film, and he becomes a very good character. Red, as well, played by Morgan Freeman, is the kind of the character that we are following through the story. Even though some of the story revolves around Tim Robbins, most of the story is told through the eyes of Red, which is kind of a unique perspective to be going from, because that's like, a character like Red usually serves as a secondary character, but in this one they serve the secondary character as the narrator of the piece, which is something very unique in King's stories. It's not entirely different than a lot of them, but it's very unique for this one. So yeah, with great acting and great script, is there any problems? No, I don't really think there's any problems. The cinematography is good, the set design is great, The sound design is pretty good. Pretty much a lot of this film is hardwired to a T of how to depict Shawshank Prison. It's a very brutal place to be, and I don't think I would ever want to be in a state prison like that. So, with that being said, I'm going to give The Shawshank Redemption an A+. It's a greatly executed film, and I really had no problems with this movie. Honestly, I mean, I could go back again and watch it again, but I didn't find anything too wrong with it. It's pretty great to watch, and, you know, the only stipulation I might have with it is that it may be a little bit too boring for some people. Because, yeah, there is some slow stuff. It is a slow film. But you gotta be able to pay attention to some of the stuff. Because if you don't pay attention, there's something that'll curve you towards the end. But that's neither here nor there. So check back in the next video as I will be reviewing 1408. We're going to be checking into another haunted hotel. And this time, we're going to be a little bit more psychological. So, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.